California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined today by the Vice Mayor of the city of Signal Hill. His name is Larry.Forester. He's running for re-election. That election is coming up in March. I want to speak with you about running in a city like Signal Hill. For those of us not familiar, surrounded by the city of Long Beach, literally. Voters, maybe, 6,000 registered voters?
6,000 registered voters.
And so maybe 1,000 or so show up?
Yeah, we do not have a turnout that I'm proud of.
Yes.
I mean, it should be at least 20% in that small of an area, and 20% would be 12,000.
Right.
We're barely pushing 1,200.
Right. I got you. Yeah, it would be 1,200, and you're barely pushing 1,000. At the same time, it's amazing how in a city that size, how every vote counts. Recently, I was interviewing someone in the San Luis Obispo County area. She was reelected mayor of Pismo Beach by 2 votes. Okay. In 2007, you won your re-election by how many votes?
1 vote.
1 vote.
One vote, and technically, election night I was 9 down. Provisional ballots are ones that are submitted, usually absentees, and they have to be verified. But 2 days later, I went 9 up with those provisional votes.
How do you, when every vote counts like that, how do you get your people out? How do you motivate people? You're in an off cycle election.
And that was my fault. I had the 4 years before ran unopposed.
Right.
And people psychologically said, "Oh God, Larry doesn't need us to come out."
Of course.
And they didn't. And I didn't have a good phone banking at that time.
Right.
Obviously, I've made up that since.
You have. In 2011, you won by a very significant margin.
So, I mean, it's an interesting little city that you literally shake the hands or have shaken the hand of every person that votes for you.
So what do you do now to avoid a repeat of 2007?
I have people on the phone. I will walk the city. I have been walking the city, talking to probably every one of my voters that will vote for me.
See, in a lot of ways, the fact that you're well known statewide. I mean, you are a leader.
I've built a reputation.
You built a reputation. You are very involved in the League of California Cities. And so, in some ways, your celebrity can be, like what happened in 2007, a bit of a misnomer. Because you still got to get elected locally.
Absolutely. And the attitude becomes, well, he doesn't need our vote. And it's an attitude that I can change and have changed in elections since.
And one could argue it's been a good few years in Signal Hill.
It's been excellent.
I interviewed a couple of years ago your, at that time, new police chief, who was involved in the construction of a new police station.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
And you have a new library, I believe?
No, the new library is on hold.
On hold, but you're hoping for it to come through?
Yeah, it got held up in the redevelopment debacle.
Of course. Okay.
In 2011. $8 million is sitting in the bank waiting to be released. So we're trying to work with the Department of Finance. Assemblymember Bloom tried to get about $500 million worth of municipal projects released.
Okay.
Money that had already been bonded. And the governor at the last minute decided, because I believe of some unions, to veto it, even though it had been passed both houses pretty well unanimously.
But at the same time, big box stores doing well. Costco has a new gas station.
Costco, people are not going to believe this, but is selling over 30,000 gallons of gas a day.
It is. It's stunning, and it's remarkable.
It's phenomenal. You'll never see all 18 of those pumps without something in front of it.
I want to speak with you as well about the recent State of the Union. You chair the California League of Cities LGBT
Local Officials Caucus.
And so you've been a leader on issues relating to the LGBT community for quite some time.
Yes, my whole career since '98, I've always been involved in it.
And we spoke recently, you are someone that's been living with HIV since 1984.
Diagnosed HIV positive in '84, full-blown AIDS in '93.
In a lot of ways, a miracle. Let's go back to 1984. The president at the time was Ronald Reagan. He wound up serving 2 terms. I believe he never said the word HIV or AIDS, is that right?
Neither word crossed his lips during that time. Now, CDC and NIH, Centers for Disease Control and National Institute of Health, were doing a lot of work in it. When he first came on board, the disease was called GRID.
GRID. Oh, okay.
Gay-related immune deficiency complex. And that started out because the cluster that came about was primarily gay.
Where? Do you know where it was?
It was in San Francisco.
It was, okay.
It was traced to there's called a book and a band played on.
Right. Yeah,
Gaten Dugas was a flight
attendant, right?
Flight attendant for Canadian Airlines, and they could trace his history in the disease spreading to people.
Right.
And opportunistic infections people had not seen in ages.
So we fast forward about 30 years, and at the recent State of the Union, President Obama said a word that had never been said in a State of the Union, and that word was transgender.
Yes.
Of which you are not, but be that as it may, I have to think as a leader in the LGBT community, that was a moment.
Yeah. Well, the T was added probably 10 years ago to the LGBT or GLBT, whichever preference you have. Transgender was not understood. People thought of drag queens, thought of people dressing up as women.
Even you had told me you didn't understand it.
No, I did not. It was not until 2004 that through then Senator Sheila Kuehl, who's now Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, had put on a seminar at Children's Hospital in LA talking about transgender. And I met a 13 and a 14-year-old who considered themselves transgender. And I began to process that their brain is not in the casing it should be. It's like a computer totally in a wrong casing.
And I think in a lot of ways, at least to my mind, being gay or lesbian it's different than being transgender. I mean, it's as different as being...
Well, it's the mind or the body setting or the hormones that have totally changed. I mean, they're totally not in the right casing.
Right.
As versus gay or lesbian is where the attraction for the same sex becomes a predominant.
I mean, you're male. I mean, it's just...
Yeah. I mean, I've described people, what's it being gay? If I kiss a woman, it's kissing through a piece of glass. If I kiss a man, it's emotion. It's feelings.
Right.
And that's just something in my brain that was created differently. In the transgender community, it's the entire brain was created differently for the framework it's in.
So being a leader in the LGBT community, what did it mean to you when you heard the President of the United States say that word? You know, when he said it, when I was watching, I thought, I wonder if this is historic. I didn't know, you know, and then I learned later it was historic. Did you know it was coming?
No.
Yeah.
No. It's to me, Barack Obama, the president, has educated himself, has looked deeper into the whole nature of sexual orientation, and understands transgender. And, you know, for him to have said it meant, and he doesn't say something he doesn't understand.
Sure.
So, I mean, it was evidence that transgender is coming to the forefront. It's getting people now to sit down and say, I need to understand it. I don't need to just look at a person and say, well, you can't be a woman, you look like a man. You can't be a man, you look like a woman.
Yeah, my wife and I have a friend who, he was not a gay man, married to a woman, and he has his, what's the expression? He's transferred, or he's transitioned.
Transitioned
to a woman.
Yeah, and you don't have to be gay.
Exactly. I mean, he's not gay.
People don't understand.
She now.
Even though we carry the GLBT, the T for transgender, it's just that the body is not what people consider normal.
Right.
Like the mindset of mind and emotions, people don't consider or didn't consider normal.
Okay, his name is Larry.Forester. He is the vice mayor of the city of Signal Hill, running for re-election. That election will be held in March. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thanks for joining us, man.
Welcome.
You
Thank
are
you for having
watching
me.
California Edition.